In 1996, we were introduced to Resident Evil, a title that would become one of Capcom's best franchises in history. In 2005, we were given Resident Evil 4, which is considered to this day as the best game of all time, and the game that would inspire future horror entries with its over-the-shoulder camera. The story takes place 6 years after Resident Evil 2. We play as Leon S. Kennedy, one of the victims and survivors of the Raccoon City outbreak. His mission as a government agent is to look for the president's kidnapped daughter Ashley Graham, said to be located in Spain. As he begins his search with some assistance from Hannigan, they soon realize that the villagers known as Ganados are willing to kill Leon without a second thought, capable of carrying weapons and organizing attacks, way different from zombies. As he continues his search whilst getting chased by a giant boulder, he comes across a man named Luis Sierra, a former cop, but before they can talk, the chief of the village finds him and knocks them both out, but thanks to his new skills as a government agent, he's able to quickly escape and find Ashley, after dealing with a giant sea creature. The rescue is cut short when we're introduced to the true leader of the cult, Osmond Saddler. It's here that I have to point out that Saddler explains to Leon that his full plan was to infect Ashley with their parasite called the Las Plagas and bring her back to the president where he'll be able to control the government. He also mentions that he infected Leon himself with the parasite. And I have to say, wouldn't it have been better if he didn't tell Leon his full plan? Well, back to the story. Leon and Ashley managed to escape to a castle after dealing with the village's chief. Things seem to be settling down until they meet Salazar, the ruler of the castle, who's going to give them a hard time. After Ashley gets kidnapped twice, Leon comes across Ada, who managed to survive her incident in Raccoon City. Her goal is to collect the Las Plagas sample and bring it to Albert Wesker, whose plan is to resurrect Umbrella. Ada, on the other hand, is actually working for a different group behind Wesker's back, but until this game, we're not sure what group she's working for. Soon after that, Luis catches up with Leon before dying by the hands of Saddler. On his last breath, Luis gives Leon a drug that would decrease the growth of the parasite and explains that he was actually a researcher who worked for Saddler and revived the Las Plagas. He's really the reason why all of this is happening in the first place. Leon manages to save Ashley again, but then she gets kidnapped again. Get used to this, guys, because it's not getting old anytime soon. Leon finds out Ashley is taken to an island after defeating Salazar, so with some assistance from Ada, the two manage to arrive to the island. As Leon gets deeper into the island, he reunites with his old partner, Krauser, who actually made a first appearance on a Resident Evil movie. He's also the one who kidnapped Ashley and is responsible for this whole game happening. But that's not all. Krauser is also working for Wesker to resurrect Umbrella. The two have a small fight with Ada saving Leon. Once again, Leon saves Ashley, but then she gets kidnapped. He deals with Krauser, he saves Ashley and gets cured, then finally deals with Saddler. He takes the sample until Ada forces him to give her the sample, then she leaves, giving Leon a means to escape with Ashley before the island explodes, and then escape to the sunset, with Ashley offering him sex. This story as a whole is fine, but questionable. Like I mentioned before, wouldn't it have been smarter if Saddler didn't tell Leon his full plan? If he would have just kept quiet and let Leon take Ashley home, he would have won just like that. Then there's the voice acting and dialogue. Well, the voice acting is perfectly fine and honestly great, but when it comes to Leon's dialogue, he can be a troll, but that's what I love about him.
No thanks, bro.
And then let's talk about Ashley. The more I played the game, the more I thought, why couldn't she carry a weapon to defend herself? Like a handgun or at very least a knife. Alright, I think it's about time I get into the gameplay. So in this game, you play in full 3D, unlike in the previous games where the cameras were completely fixed. The only thing this game kept was tank controls, which isn't as bad once you get used to it. Combat and weapons have also had a complete change, mostly in terms of the third-person view aim. This makes taking care of enemies a lot more effective, and on top of that, every weapon comes with a laser, giving you a complete accuracy of aiming. You also carry a knife that does decent damage, so whenever you stun an enemy or manage to get them to the ground, go for a quick slash to save some ammo for your weapons. I should also mention melee attacks. If you can stun an enemy like I said before by shooting an arm, leg, or head, then you can quickly get close by activating the attack. This can also work for taking care of crowds. If you can get at least one with a stun and go for a melee strike, then other enemies will stagger, giving you some crowd control. However, even though you get stuff like ammo and grenades by simply breaking crates, I do recommend being careful with how much you use up. But thankfully, this isn't too much of a problem since enemies also carry ammo whenever you kill them. There's even money in this game that you can collect and spend by looking for this guy known as the Merchant. It's unknown why this man is even here, but whenever you find him or his blue flames, you can spend that money to buy weapons and upgrades. You can even sell things to him like diamonds and necklaces that are really hard to find, and he sells you weapons like handguns, shotguns, and snipers, and so on. You can even upgrade these weapons to make them stronger. My favorites are the Red 9 and Blacktail for their great damage, the Broken Butterfly because oh my god it's the best for bosses, the TMP because of its rapid firing, the Riot Shotgun because it keeps its high damage even at long distances, and finally the Samurai Rifle that's great for headshots. Now there's one thing that I haven't mentioned yet, and that's the inventory management. So instead of using an item box like in previous entries to keep items you weren't using inside, you have the briefcase that you can keep 24/7 and can get bigger if you pay for it. It makes keeping items easier since you don't have to backtrack and recover the items you need for the game. In terms of puzzles, they're actually not that bad and are not used as much as I once thought. Now there are a few that are very annoying to solve, but you should be able to figure it out. Now when it comes to the enemy variety, be sure to always stay careful. As I mentioned before, Granados are way different from zombies since they can dodge your attacks, attack you in crowds, and there are even some that come with the parasite. The phase 1 parasites have a long reach to attack and they hurt, so you don't want to be surrounded by 2 or more of those things. Then there's the mini bosses like Dr. Salvador who can insta-kill you with his chainsaw, the Wolverines that can hit you multiple times if you're not careful, the Levisadors that can turn invisible, and then we have the worst of them all, the Regenerators. They're one of the most scariest encounters in the game because they can just straight up regrow them limbs. The bosses in the game are really good in my opinion. They're not too easy and not too hard, but just right by how they were made. The graphics are still looking good to this day, and the cutscenes are great as well, but with a twist. You see, on certain cutscenes, there are times when you are forced to press a button that will save you from death. You will never know when these will pop up unless this is your second or third playthrough. I don't mind this too much, but I wish they didn't use it in certain sequences. Now in some scenarios, you have to keep Ashley by your side as you progress through the game. This is by far one of the most frustrating parts of the game, since she can easily be killed with one hit, enemies can kidnap her causing an instant game over, and if you try saving her, you can accidentally kill her. Definitely the worst part of the game. So after completing the game, there are extra content for repeated playthroughs, like gaining new costumes, unlocking professional mode that unlocks this laser that I would like to call the Mega Buster for reasons. Then there's separate ways in Assignment Ada where you can play as Ada and see things on her side of the story. If you can complete them, then you can unlock an extra costume for Ashley that gives her an armor that can protect her from any kind of damage. Thank God! And finally we have the Mercenaries, a small distraction with you killing as many enemies as possible and getting a high score before the time runs out. You get to play as Leon, Ada, Krauser, Hunk, and Wesker, 5 of them having a different playstyle. I never got to unlock all of them, mostly because I didn't really have the time at this moment, but it does give you an infinite magnum if you can get 6 stars with every character. But man, I love this game. There's just too many good things about it that blocks most of the bad things. I can come back to this game anytime without having any second thoughts. If you're interested, go ahead and give it a try. It's on every kind of console you could think of. With that said, everyone have a fantastic day, and I'll see you next time.
Resident Evil 4.